Greetings and welcome back to Room 303 and our chats with Emily as we're calling our readings through the poetry of Emily Dickinson. We're using the Johnson edition. We turned now to poem 190. He was weak and I was strong then. Now, this is one of those poems that is an unbelievable riddle. There are so many different ways to read this poem. Many have seen this as one of the most controversial poems that Emily ever wrote, especially because they will read this as a romantic poem, an erotica poem, an ode of a kind, lovers, of course, seeking to try to part after their consummated union. Think about Romeo and Juliet in Act 3, at the end of Act 3 of that. There is, I think, a line that works in a letter to Sue. We've quoted this already a couple of times. Letter 586. Emily said, quote, "In a life that stopped guessing, you and I should not feel at home." And I think the study of this poem will play that game. I will present two different possible readings of this poem, and I'll leave it up to you guys to decide if you like this idea or not. One of the reasons we called our series Chats with Emily is I would love if I could have the opportunity to ask Emily, hey, in poem 190, what games were you playing at there? And playing is the appropriate kind of language. You'll remember that in a prior text we were playing around with the word play, that is to say, in the previous 188 poem. Now, our assumption is that you've been following our stuff at learnstrong.net, down that left-hand side, Chats with Emily, our playlist. I'm really hopeful that you've already studied through our set of introductory comments, as well as the preceding 188 poems. If you've done that with us, and now you come to poem 190, I just mentioned 188, Make Me a Picture of the Sun, where the word play gets used. If you followed along with us thus far, you know how much fun Emily is having. You guys remember when we did the series Talks with Walt, and we did all of the poems in Whitman's Leaves of Grass. We've posted that as well at learnstrong.net. You remember that I said I believe that Whitman is having great fun in so many of these poems. I think the same is true of Emily, and I think she's having a lot of fun here, although I think this poem can be read at a far more serious level as well. I think there may even be a little bit of that referencing of Jacob wrestling with the angel or with God. Let's enjoy the poem. He was weak, and I was strong then, so he let me lead him in. I was weak, and he was strong then, so I let him lead me home. 'Twasn't far, the door was near. 'Twasn't dark, for he went too. 'Twasn't loud, for he said naught. That was all I cared to know. Day knocked, and we must part. Neither was strongest now. He strove, and I strove too. We didn't do it, though. Exclamation point, yes. Now, exactly who the he is in this poem is obviously going to be of some tremendous debate. Many have read this poem as a fantasy, that is to say a potential sexual fantasy, a consummative sexual fantasy. Others have said they're not so sure about what exactly Emily is doing, and it all comes down to, of course, the pronoun he. Exactly who it is that she's referencing. Notice though, whoever he is starts out weak, and Emily, assuming that the I in the poem is in fact Emily, I'm not altogether sure that's fair to do in a poem like this. Notice, he was weak, I was strong. Notice all of the opposites, this balanced kind of, we would say, reciprocal construction where, notice, he was weak, I was strong, then it's I was weak, he was strong. Notice the game that gets played. So, he let me lead him in. Notice already who's in charge. Well, the speaker of the poem, assuming a female, is the one in charge, with the he being the weak one. And therefore, he let this happen. I was weak. Notice again the power of dashes here. I was weak, and he was strong. And then the use of the word then. So I let him lead me only now it's not lead me in, but rather lead me home. Now, the use of the word home has been obviously a whole lot of speculation on this poem. The use of the word home is fascinating. Are we talking about some kind of home that we're trying to build together as these two people home? Or are we talking about, home as in the end project and union? Is that what we're referencing? It's not clear, but there is a break. And then we get three of the 'twas. Or as 'twasn't, right? 'Twasn't far. We're assuming home, right? 'Twasn't far. The door was near. 'Twasn't dark, for he went to. Now, the dark. Why would the dark here? Obviously, we're talking about early pre-dawn, maybe. 'Twasn't loud, for he said not. That was all I cared, and then you would probably assume the word about to somehow rhyme with not, maybe. But it was all I cared to know. Now, I think this is significant, and I think it's here that Emily is playing an epistemological game. Back to our Big Five and the first of our Big Five, epistemology. What you can know. Notice here she says, that was all I cared to know. That he didn't say anything. And then, to finish the poem, day knocked. And of course, here we are with the possibility of the Obad, that is to say, the poem of parting by lovers. Day knocked, and we must part. Notice the word must here, right? As in, it's a requirement that we part. Neither was strongest. Now, and this begs the question, are we talking now about union? Are we talking about consummation? Are we talking about some kind of sexual union? There's no question that you can read this poem as erotica of a kind, no doubt. Neither was strongest. So notice we go from her being the strongest to him being the strongest, and now there's a sense of balance going on. He strove, and I strove too. Now, a whole lot of people have gone back to poem 59 that we've already done with Jacob wrestling the angel or God from Genesis 32, 22 to 32. You'll remember our comments in poem 59. I think that motif of wrestling or striving here, notice, he strove and I strove too. Now, what the striving was isn't so clear. Maybe it is who gets to decide whether one leaves or the other leaves, possibly. Notice, we didn't do it, though. And this is one of those poems where, again, riddles. What is the antecedent to the pronoun it that they didn't do? They didn't, what, consummate this union? They didn't part? In other words, they elected to go ahead and stay together and not part? Is this a poem that is, with that exclamation point, talking about success, or is it talking about failure? And how am I supposed to know what is exactly going on here? I think for Emily, there is an intentional vagueness. I think there's another reading to this poem, though, other than the erotic reading. I mean, I don't want to take away from that at all. But I think it's very possible that the word strove can be a giveaway. And an astute reader would recognize she's playing the Genesis 32 game. That's the game where Jacob is striving with God or the angel, and in the process he is somehow wounded. You'll remember in the hip. And this whole idea of striving, of who is the strong, who is the weak, I think there is in fact a way to read this poem as theological, epistemological striving. In other words, I am trying to get to a point where I can figure out which one of the two of us, Emily would be saying, me or God, for example. This is about maybe building theological faith and certainty, epistemological certainty, and maybe the best that she can hope for is a certain kind of fallibilist where neither, it's almost like détente, where neither one is able ultimately to have the upper hand. I'm going to leave it to you to decide. I think though at 2a, we could safely say this. She's arguing that relationships are often complicated. It's not always so easy to know what's going on in relationships. At 2b, I mentioned this balanced reciprocal construction. He was weak, I was weak, I was strong, he was strong, that kind of thing. At 3a, well, I mentioned Romeo and Juliet, and of course the Genesis passage as well. You'll remember in Romeo and Juliet, at the end of the evening together, that the young lovers are having a debate about which bird is singing, right? Is it the bird of morning or the bird of night, and the nightingale still? You'll remember that immediately following that, parting. Right. Those are the last times that they will see each other together alive. And of course, right after that, you'll remember that poor Juliet just goes through absolute hell because each one of the important people in her life leaves her. We've given full lectures on the poem at learnstrong.net. Finally, to own a poem like this, what was a time in your life when you found that relationships were complicated? And to what degree does this poem help you to begin to think through again that challenging time in your life? Thank you.